1 minute. This is Yishai. Yishai, introduce yourself again. This is Yishai.
Hi, my name is Yishai. It's great to be here.
Okay, Yishai is helping us. He's assisting us. And so anyway, that's Yishai. He'll be here beside me in case I press the wrong button or something like that. Also, to give advice here now and again. Okay, and so we have. So David, I can hear you well.
Thank you. I'm here.
1 second, what?
You want him and you to be on the screen?
Yeah.
No.
Just a second. Okay. Okay, David, you want to say hello? Ask a question, make a comment?
Well, hello, everybody. It's very good to be here. We had some very cold periods, but it's slightly warmer now, so I'm very grateful for that.
You live in England, don't you?
I live just outside London.
Okay, very good.
And we're talking tonight, are you not, about the characteristics of the tribes? Are you not? Am I correct?
Yeah.
Well, that is
at the present talk, we'll see how things go. We're going to start off continuing the story of Joseph, some new observations.
Yes.
Also connected with the tribes. We'll see how we progress, how much time we have, how things go. And if we have enough time, we'll also put in attributes concerning the tribes, more identifying characteristics of the tribes in general.
Yes, my mother was very interested in that topic, by the way.
Which topic?
The characteristics of the tribes.
Okay, so that's we'll have something on it this time. Every time we talk, actually we have something on it.
How long?
Yeah, good to see everyone.
Okay. You like to say something?
Yeah.
No?
Yeah, I'm excited to hear your presentation. Genesis 37 is a favorite. Yeah.
Okay.
Big time.
Okay. It's always good to see you. Hope you enjoy it. Okay, now we'll have Chaz. 1 second. Chaz, would you like to say something, please? Chaz, where are you talking from, Chaz? Where are you?
I'm from Ottawa, Canada.
In Canada? Okay, Mark McGee,
Canada.
Just spoke, is in Georgia, USA. And you're in Canada. Whereabouts in Canada?
Live there.
Ottawa? Okay. Okay. Have you got something to say, Chaz? Any observation, comments?
I'm here to learn and listen. I've been going over some of your books that I haven't read for years, okay, and am impressed seeing things in them that I had missed. Some of your comments about DNA in your tribes book, I think you wrote a forward to it, and to me personally in 2012, and I found that interesting. The Welsh and the Basque DNA sometimes is confused. That's something I find interesting. I don't know if the Basques fit into the tribes, or they're just a pre-Israelite group that was stranded up in the Pyrenees. I don't know.
Okay. Well, I
don't know if you have any comments on that yourselves.
No, I believe that the Welsh, the people, there were earlier, there were inhabitants in England, in Britain, in the British Isles before the British came, before the Hebrews came there. But the overwhelming majority were those of Israelite descent, according to our understanding. The Welsh were part of them. The Welsh spoke a Hebrew language, and so did the other Celtic peoples. And the Welsh has apparently been better preserved than in the other areas, but all over they intermixed with the European culture and adopted aspects of European languages, and the Hebrew elements or Middle Eastern elements remained as a substratum, but are still there. For those who study linguistics and the like. Okay, so thanks a lot. We'll come back to you, or if you have any comments later on, we'll come back to you later. John, would you like to say something?
Well, I used to live in Ottawa. In fact, I lived most of my life in Ottawa.
Okay.
The one thing I wanted to say is about Ephraim. The last time we were discussing about this, and how.
Where are you talking from again? From Brazil?
Pardon?
You're talking from Brazil now?
Yes.
From Brazil. Okay.
Yes, I am in Brazil. I've been here for a long time. Okay. And I was on my way to Jerusalem, but then that Fukushima came, and I had to divert my path. to South Africa, and then I got robbed, and the government kicked me out, and I ended up in South America.
Okay.
So I'm trying to get back to Israel. I'm trying to go to Jerusalem. That is complicated.
Okay, so we'll get on with the talk now in a minute or so. I'll come back to you if you have any comments on the way. You can ask later on. I'll see you later. Okay. 1 second. Okay. This is the story of Joseph. Okay. So, the story of Joseph, one of the main themes of the Bible is the story of Joseph, Joseph and his brothers. Also, for people who study the tribes, the story of Joseph is important. It's a paradigm, a prototype of, in some senses, in some ways, of the future relationships between the different tribes, the relationships between each other, the balance of forces between each other, the personalities, tribal personalities that still exist, that we can still see here and there from the very beginning. And it's also an interesting story in itself. The Bible has been called the greatest story ever told. There's everything in it. It's literature, edification, inspiration. It is historical significance. And much of what we consider to be Western civilization and its values is derived from the Bible. If we want to understand Western civilization, we want to understand the world we live in, the more you understand the Bible, the more it will help you understand things, help you understand modern life. Also, the Bible is the Word of God, and our believers, the Hebrew Bible is the Word of God, and everything in it is holy and has significance. And even simple stories, simple observations in the Bible often have a symbolic of things much greater, much beyond the literal meaning, the simple meaning. And you can go very deeply into it, and a lot of people do. And this is the whole science. People dedicate their lives to it. But all of events now, at present, we're only trying to get to the simple meaning, as simple as possible. But we are using different commentaries, different opinions of people who are much greater than ourselves, because this helps us to understand the simple meaning and get to it and get to certain hidden points that are still there. And the Bible is the closest we are going to get to divine revelation. You can pray, you can do this and that, and you can feel inspired, but in the end you have to come back to the Bible to help you keep yourself on track, to know that you're going along the right path. The Bible is a parameter that we have, and this is what we are doing. And we are going through the texts and going through the commentators and seeing what is going on here. So remember that Abraham was the first Hebrew. Abraham begat Isaac. Isaac begat Jacob. Jacob was renamed Israel. Genesis 32:28, 35:10. Jacob, that is Israel, had 12 sons. And these were to become the ancestors of the 12 tribes of Israel. He had 4 wives. His 2 main wives were Rachel and Leah, who were sisters, daughters of Laban. And then he had Bilhah, who was a maidservant of Rachel, and Zilpah, who was a maidservant of Leah. And according to some interpretations, Bilhah and Zilpah were also daughters of Laban, as well as Rachel and Leah, but they were from concubines or from wives of a lower status. And they too were, as if to say, maidservants of Rachel and Leah. At all events, Bilhah was a handmaiden of Rachel, Zilpah was a handmaiden of Leah. Jacob loved Rachel more than all of the others. The Bible says, from Rachel, Jacob begat 2 sons, Joseph and Benjamin. There were 2 full brothers. Rachel died, giving birth to Benjamin, the youngest son. And Joseph was his favorite son. And he gave Joseph a striped-colored garment in Hebrew. This striped-colored garment sometimes translated as a garment of stripes, or many colored garments in Hebrew. Cotton pasim, as most of the commentators mention, means intertwined lines. Actually, a cartouche type design. He had actually it had done designs according to commentators in the Bible, and this has been confirmed by archaeological evidence depicting people from the land of Canaan, the time of the patriarchs, the time of the Israelites. They show quite often, or fairly frequently, people from that area wearing tartan type, like Scottish tartan type garments. It's interesting. Nothing else. And apparently these garments, tartan type garments, couldn't pass him, according to the commentators, was a sign of rank. And we find that in the story of David and his daughter Tamar, that Tamar also is described wearing a cotton pasim. And the commentators, the commentators say that this was a cloak of royalty, that all the daughters of David wore it. Also, Davar says that actually Joseph had a cotton pasim. Says that all the sons of Jacob had a cotton pasim because they all had a rank. But that the cloak of Joseph was better somehow. It was exceptional in its quality, and for this reason, the other sons were jealous of Joseph over this. You can look it up in 2 Samuel 13:19 when it describes Tamar, the daughter of David, wearing a cotton passing, that is a coat of many colors, that is a tartan cloak. Sometimes it's translated as long-sleeved garment concerning Tamar, but it's the same word as the word used here to describe the cloak that Joseph received. And also Joseph dreamt dreams. He had dreams. And in these dreams, the brothers of Joseph and all his family bowed down to him. One stage they are represented by the sheaves of wheat. Other time they are represented by the stars, the moon and the stars. And he told them about it. They were a bit angry at him, irritated by this. Not only that, but it says that he brought back a bad report about his brothers. It says, these are the records here, Genesis 27:2. These are the records in Jacob. Joseph was 17 years of age. Remember, 17 is quite young at that time. Remember when we were 17, we didn't always have our heads going the right way, did we? So he was apparently the same. Joseph, when he was 17 years of age, was plastering the flock with his brothers while he was still a youth. Together, whatever. This caravan came along, carrying spices to go down to Egypt. And they sold Judah, suggested instead of killing or leaving Joseph to die, sell him to the caravan going down to Egypt. And so they pulled him up and they sold him as a slave. And it says after that they slaughtered a goat. It says V'yishchatu, they slaughtered a goat in a ritual slaughter, using ritual slaughter, a kosher goat. They killed it even though they didn't want to eat it. They killed it in a kosher way. They dipped the coat in the blood, and from this we deduce that we see that what happened to them, what they did, reflects on what was going on with the Torah does not expressly telling us. So we see that Joseph, as if to say, gave a false allegation against them that were eating non-kosher meat. So, but we see that even when they wanted to kill a goat, not for meat, just for its ordinary usage, they still killed the goat in a kosher way. So this is what we have. This is showing us that Joseph was being punished in a sense for not being careful in the bad report that he had given forth. And also in Egypt, when Joseph would be falsely accused of attempted rape, of having attempted illicit intercourse with the wife of his master. And from this too, it is been deduced that he had also said against the brothers that they were having or wanted to have illicit intercourse with the Canaanite women, and that true was not correct. Apparently, was mistaken or whatever, and therefore he too was to be punished in the same measure that he had measured out. This is a theme that often repeats itself in the Bible all the way through. For good or for bad, the same measure that you measured out later will be measured back to you. And so also Jacob, and so they dipped the cloak in what's the name? They dipped the cloak in the blood of a goat, showed it to Jacob, and Jacob said, "This is apparently a wild beast that's devoured him." And just as Jacob had deceived his father when dressing himself up as Esau, so too, in a sense, he too was deceived by a cloak, by a misrepresentation of a garment. It's there's similarity here. You see, this is a theme running throughout this story, throughout the Bible, actually, of how you did whatever you did, even if you did it for a good purpose. When you get punished, you're liable to get punished that will reflect what you have done, which is interesting. And so this is measure for measure that we have throughout the biblical story. And Joseph was sold, captain of the guard of Pharaoh, the chief executioner of Pharaoh, of the ruler of Egypt. And he was successful in his duties in the household of Pharaoh. Apparently, Pharaoh was a government official, an important person in the land. He had the whole estate, he had the whole goings on there. And Joseph was put in charge of it. Joseph was successful. He knew what he was doing, even though he was young. And he is also involved in the household, running the household, the mansions, everything connected with it, and the estate of the Pharaoh. Sometimes he had to go in and out of the house. And the wife of Potiphar kept on trying to seduce him, asking him to lie with her, and he refused. So she grabbed him at one stage, and he ran out, but she caught hold of his cloak, pulled his cloak off him. Then she claimed that he had tried to rape her, and consequently he was put into jail. He was incarcerated. And whilst he was in jail, the same thing happened. Once again, he found favour in the eyes of the person responsible for the jail, and they put him in charge of all the prisoners. He was a prisoner himself, but he was there running the place, more or less. And sometime later, the chief butler and the baker of Pharaoh were also put in jail. And they were offended somehow or other, and they each one had his own dream. And then Joseph came along in the morning, and he saw them sad, disturbed, perturbed. And he asked them what was the matter, and they told him they had a dream. So he interpreted each one his own dream, and he predicted that one of them would be executed and the other one would be restored to his former posting. And that is what happened, just as Joseph said. And later on, the one who had been returned to his posting, when Pharaoh also had a dream and no one else could interpret it, or actually they could interpret it, but none of the interpretations put Pharaoh's mind at ease. They didn't ring true. Till Joseph, so remember Joseph, and they brought Joseph to him, and Joseph explained to him what the dream was, and he explained to him what the dream meant. And he explained the dream of Pharaoh predicted, or two dreams of Pharaoh, both of them predicted 7 years of famine 7 years of plenty, of bountiful harvest and so on, 7 years of plenty, followed by 7 years of famine, of dearth, of lack of food. And he also advised Pharaoh, now you're in the 7 years of plenty, just begin storing up food so that you will be able to survive, you and all your people, the 7 years of famine that will follow afterwards, and appoint someone responsible over them. So Pharaoh decided to take his advice, and so he appointed Joseph over this and over all of Egypt. And then Joseph, he married a daughter of Potiphar, the priest of On. Potiphar is apparently another name for Potiphar, his former manager of his household, who had put him in jail. He married the daughter, Osanat was her name, and she bore him two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. Actually, Manasseh was the firstborn Manasseh, and the second one was Ephraim. And the name Manasseh means to forget, or has several meanings. One of the meanings is to forget, to also make a representative intermediary for my troubles. It can also mean responsible representation. In other words, something due to something being done that isn't the power of that as the strength of advocacy on one's behalf. Manasseh, responsible representation. We identify the descendants of the people in the USA today with primarily with the Lost Ten Tribes, but dominated especially by the tribe of Manasseh. And one of the meanings of Manasseh is responsible representation. And there's a whole long explanation, Rabbi Shimshon Raphael Hirsch, on this. It wasn't identifying America with Manasseh. But we can take what he said and apply it to America, because it's exactly the same thing we're saying, in effect, that Manasseh means responsible representation, and responsible representation is a founding principle of the American Constitution, of American politics and American life, and this helps strengthen our identification of people in America today with descendants of those 10 tribes, and especially with Manasseh. The other son, Ephraim, actually means fertile, fertility, but it can also connotate nobility, aristocracy. Even in Hebrew can do this. A person, Ephrathi is a member of the tribe of Ephraim, or also an aristocrat. And we find aristocracy to be important amongst the British people, the English people. And not only being an aristocrat is important amongst them, but the whole arrangement of hierarchy of putting everyone in some type of position in regards to yourself, to regards to everyone else. This is the characteristics of the British. This fits the name, Ephraim. And so we have it. Meanwhile, the famine was in Egypt. The famine came to Egypt after Joseph had prepared the land for it. And so all the people started coming to Joseph, and he started feeding them, giving them produce, and he also reformed the Egyptians. He reformed the way they were running things. He reformed the whole government, the whole arrangements, and so on. He was supplying, and he's also supplying the nations around Egypt, the whole civilized world, in effect, it seems, was coming to Egypt. And Egypt in ancient times, more often than not, Egypt was a very important, it was a granary for all the Mediterranean world. You read Roman history, there's a lot of the struggles between Julius Caesar and Octavian and Mark Antony and Cleopatra and all that story. A lot of it, so the importance of it, Mark Antony was in Egypt, and he controlled the wheat harvest. And the Romans needed the wheat harvest. And through his control of the wheat harvest, he was trying to get control for his faction of Rome itself. So Egypt, throughout much of its early history, was important as a wheat supplier for the world. And so this was how it was in ancient times. And now this famine had struck in Egypt, and it struck in other nations of the world. So that a lot of different peoples were coming to Egypt to get the grain that Joseph had stored up. Nowadays, Egypt is actually being fed by the USA, fed and maintained by the USA, because if the USA did not do that, she would collapse, and it would be a disaster, not only in Egypt, but throughout Africa and throughout the whole of the Western world. You have, how many people do you have in Egypt? It's much more than Syria. You saw all the people running to Syria. So if that was to happen to Egypt, it would be 10 times, 120 times worse. And Europe would not be able to cope with that. So they have to feed them where they are. So that's an aside, but check it up. It shows something of what happened and what the situation is at present. We're not aware of, but the people in power are aware of it. At all events, Joseph was there, feeding people, selling grain. And the brothers came down from Canaan, also there too. They were lacking food. They came down to buy grain for their families. And so Joseph met up with them, and he accused them of being spies. So what's the idea? What's the big deal? Why should he accuse them of being spies? Why not something else? So it seems that, as I once heard someone in someone was giving a talk about it, and that's what he suggested. He suggested that you have Joseph is up there, and he's in charge of everyone. But he's not dealing with little people. There are hundreds, thousands of people coming in every day to buy food. And he's just giving general directions, overseeing it. He's not checking out everyone. But you have someone who's suspected of spying or espionage that already involves the highest levels of government. So suddenly it becomes an issue that he should take a personal interest in. And he already found out somehow or other that the brothers had come down. He expected them to come down. But by accusing them of espionage, he justified why he was taking a personal interest in this case, so the Egyptians would not necessarily understand what was going on before he wanted them to do so. So he accused the brothers of espionage. And he started questioning them. And they told him that there were 12 brothers. One of them has disappeared. And another one is staying with his father, who's old and he's young. The father is old and the brother is young. The father needs him. And he keeps them there. And he accuses them of being spies. He puts them in jail for 3 days. And then he told them to take grain back to their families. But one of them would have to remain a surety until their return. That is Simeon. And this also strengthens what we said before, that apparently Simeon and Levi were the instigators of the plot against him. So he arrested Simeon. Why did he pick on Simeon? Apparently, Simeon had been instrumental in the problems of what had been done against him. And the brothers started recriminating with each other. Genesis 42:21, it says, they said to one another, truly we are guilty concerning our brothers, because we saw the distress of his soul when he pleaded with us. Said we would not listen. Therefore this distress has come upon us. Reuben answered, saying, did I not tell you, do not sin against the boy? And you would not listen. Now comes the reckoning for his blood. So we know, there are 2 points pointed out by the Safona, Rabbi Avadia ben Yaakov Safona, 1475-1550 in Italy. He was one of the famous commentators, and he points out on this incident that there are 2 things we should notice from this. First of all, the brothers recriminated against them amongst each other. Why did we do this? Why didn't we listen to Joseph? Why didn't we take pity on him when he was begging us for mercy? But they did not say anything about having done wrong. They did not condemn each other for having condemned Joseph. They merely condemned each other or recriminated against each other for not having mercy upon him when he had asked for mercy. But the initial judgment that they had put out against him, they found nothing wrong with it. It shows there may have been something on their side in this matter. Another point he points out that apparently Reuben had indeed, it says the Bible tells us that Reuben had told them not to kill the boy, but to throw him in the pit. And Reuben had intended to come back later and restore him to his father. And he went away. And meanwhile, they sold him to caravan going to Egypt. And the Bible tells us that Reuben did indeed come back to the pit. Returned to the pit, see Genesis 37:29, returned to the pit. And then Joseph wasn't in the pit, was not in the pit. And he tore his clothes, and he returned to his brothers and said, the lad is no more. And where shall I go? The lad, this word lad is actually a Scottish word. A lad is similar to the Hebrew word yeled, meaning boy. The boy is not here. So at all events, Joseph kept Simeon with him. They sent the brothers away with food. And they went back to Jacob, their father. They gave food to all their households. And they began to eat it up. And the supplies began to diminish. So Reuben asked their father to let Benjamin return with him to Egypt. And Reuben offered to give his 2 sons. Actually, he was destined to have 4 sons, or 4 sons is what he had. he offered to give 2 of his sons as surety for Benjamin. Jacob refused. It says in Genesis 42, then Reuben spoke to his father, saying, you may put my 2 sons to death if I do not bring him back to you. Put him in my care, and I will return him to you. But Jacob said, my son shall not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he alone is left. Remember that Rachel, the mother of Benjamin and Joseph, had been the favorite wife, the one who Jacob loved more than anyone else, and he had been attached. His soul had been attached to Joseph, and now his soul was attached to Benjamin, and Benjamin was in effect taking the place of both Rachel, his dead wife, and of Joseph, his son, who he believed had been killed. And he didn't want to see any harm come to him. And he said, if harm should be fallen on the journey you are taken, then you'll bring my grey hair down to Sheol. That is a place of souls after death, in sorrow. And so this is what we have. But Jacob refused the offer of Reuben. He didn't want to do it. He wasn't prepared to do it. So they had a man desert where they kept on eating. And then things began to get desperate. It wouldn't be long before they wouldn't have anything. And then they would be in real trouble, them and all of the family. And they needed to go back. And Benjamin would have to go with him. So Judah came up. Judah now, instead of Reuben, Judah came up. Judah said to his father, yes, I'll see Genesis 43, verse 8. Send the lad with me, and we will arise and go that we may live and not die. We, as well as you and our little ones, and I myself will be surety for him. You may hold me responsible for him. If I do not bring him back to you and set him before you, then let me bear the blame before you forever. If we had not delayed, surely now we would have returned twice. So I would have been able to go there and come back 2 times over. If you had to let me go when I wanted to. And I would have bought victuals for all of us. So Jacob let them go and take Benjamin with him. And they came to Joseph, and Joseph received them well. And he dined with them. He took them into his house, and he prepared food for them, and he gave them each one food. And he also showed favoritism towards Benjamin, giving him gifts and larger portions than all of the others. But he also told his servants to plant in the baggage of Benjamin his chalice cup, his special the ritual cup that he had, special cup. Put it, and it was apparently valuable, very valuable. Put it in the baggage of Benjamin, and then the brothers went away, and so Joseph had people chase after him, bring them back, and accuse them of stealing his cup, and made a search in all of the luggage that they had. And they found the cup in the baggage of Benjamin. So Joseph said, so you can go, and this person who stole my cup will have to stay here as my slave. And Judah came up and started intervening, started arguing about on of Benjamin. It says Genesis 44:18, and Judah came near to him and said, oh my Lord, please let your servant speak a word in my Lord's hearing. Do not let your anger turn against your servant, for you are even like Parah, my Lord. My Lord asked his son, you are like Parah. Parah, my Lord, asked his servant, saying, have you a brother or a brother? And we said to my Lord, we have a father, no man, and a child of his old age who is young. His brother is dead, he alone is left of his mother's children, and his father loves him. Then you said to your servants, bring him down to me, that I may set my eyes on him. And you said to my Lord, the lad cannot leave his father, for if he should leave his father would die. But you said to your servants, unless your youngest brother comes down with you, you shall see my face no more. So it was when we went up to your servants, my father, to your servant, my father, that we told them the words of my Lord. And they would just seem to have 2 different tasks to the Messianic era. Judah would need to learn and to teach the law and to pray. And Joseph would rule the world, civilize mankind. And Judah was saying that through the virtue of Judah, in some way this also influenced Joseph. That Joseph would rule in some sense through the virtue of Judah, through Judah doing his task. Joseph would also be enabled to do what he had to do. And historically he did. Now, another insight is given to us about Moshe David Valley, 1697 and 1777, in Padua, Italy, northern Italy, near Venice. And he said, what was Joseph playing around with him? This cat and mouse, what was the action? What was Joseph's intention? Was he some type of sadist? Or was he just, why was he acting this way? So he says the intention of Joseph was to administer the punishment he, Joseph, had become liable for, measure for measure. Judah had first suggested selling Joseph as a slave. Judah had proposed the idea to sell Joseph as a slave. And this had caused great anguish to Judah. Now, great anguish to Joseph. Now Joseph was putting Judah in the position of being himself to become a slave to Joseph, or to have to stand by and see that happen to his brother Benjamin, for whom he was responsible, for whom he had guaranteed his father that nothing would happen to him. So in a sense, this was a way of catharization, of purification. Brothers go through a type of catharsis, a purification of their emotions to realize what they had done, to experience the same thing before he reveals himself to them. And now we have another question. How culpable was Judah? Well, we saw that the brothers had intended to kill Joseph. Reuben had saved him and said, don't kill him, put him in a pit. And let him be the elements take care of him. Then Judah says, you can't let this happen. Let's sell him to the Egyptians. So there are critics of Joseph who say that in the same way as all through this story, we see that Judah is the one taking charge. Judah is the one giving direction. Judah is the one making suggestions that get accepted by the others. And so too in this case, what Judah said was accepted by the others. So they say that in the same way that he was able to convince them to sell Joseph, so too he would have been able to convince them to restore him to their father. That's one line of thought amongst the different commentators. And that's it. Emek Davar goes along these lines. Another possibility is actually from the Talmud. The Talmud says that anyone who says that anyone who blesses Judah is blaspheming. And it quotes a verse that means that someone who does a good deed through doing something bad is blaspheming. And so this is the case of Judah. The Judah was in effect doing something bad, selling his brother, even though he thought he was doing the least of two evils. It should needed to be condemned. That is how it's usually understood. But the wording of what the Talmud says can also be understood to say, as the Torah Tamima, Rabbi Baruch Levi Epstein, 1869-41, he quotes the Mahasha, Rabbi Shmuel Edel's 1555-1631, as saying, no, it's not that way. The word translated as blessing also can mean curse. In other words, anyone who says that Judah did wrong, he is blaspheming. The Judah was in the right. So what is the story? The story is that Judah would not have been able to persuade the brothers to go back on what they had done. They had already gotten together. They had done violence, grabbed their brother, done violence to him. I don't know, they probably beat him up in the process. They tore his cloak off him. They took it to his father. They caused his father terrible anguish, as if his son had been torn to pieces by a wild goat. And they had planned to kill him. And if they go take him now and restore him to his father, so his father's going to be a little bit irritated by them. He's liable to be terribly irritated by them, even angry with them. And he's liable to dispossess them. Who knows what he's liable to do because of that, or curse them forever. And after all, Judah, they understood, in their eyes, Joseph was culpable. He had done wrong. He had been plotting against them. So Judah, even if he had wanted to, probably would not have been able to persuade them to return Joseph to their father. But he was able to persuade them to sell him to the Egyptians. And in this way, he saved his life. And we see this Jacob referring to this. Later the brothers would be reconciled, and Jacob would know everything that had gone on. And then, but he didn't say anything to the brothers until his deathbed, until he died. When the brothers came in and he was dying, he gave each of the tribes a blessing. And when he came to Joseph, he said, when he came to Judah, he said, he came to Judah, came to Joseph, came to each one of the tribes, blessed each one. But when he came to Joseph, this is what he said. Or part. When he came to Judah, this is what he said, or part of what he said. See Genesis 49 verse 8. Judah, you are he whom your brothers shall praise. Your hand shall be on the neck of your enemies. Your father's children shall bow down before you. Judah is a lion's whelp, the son of a lion. From the prey, my son, from the prey, from what that was about to be torn to pieces, you have gone up. He bows down, he lies down as a lion. He is a lion, who shall rouse him? The scepter, there's a symbol of rulership, shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver, someone who gives laws, from between his feet, until Shiloh comes. Shiloh represents the Messiah. And to him shall be the obedience of the peoples, in the plural, not of the people, of the peoples, of all the peoples of the world, binding his donkey to the vine, and his donkey's coat to the choice wine. He washed his garments in wine, his clothes in the blood of grapes. His eyes are darker than wine, and his teeth whiter than milk. That is speaking of both of Judah and the future Messiah. But here he said, what did he say here? There's a verse here, key verse concerning what we're speaking about. He says, from the prey, my son, you have gone up. From the prey in Hebrew, what was about to be torn to pieces. You went up, you elevated, you came out of. You say from the prey, my son, translated as my son, instead of speaking to Judah, now he's speaking the prey, my son, that is Joseph. My son was a prey to wild beasts. Joseph, my son, was a prey to wild beasts. And potentially to be torn to pieces by wild beasts. Put there to be torn to pieces by wild beasts. And you went up, you brought him up, you saved, you restored him to me. And so this confirms that Judah, in effect, had done right, despite everything. And it was not to know that if he had not have done that, probably Reuben would have come back later and he would have found Joseph there and he would have saved him, but he didn't. So we have a few things in this pronouncement. The expression, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good. Also in Hebrew can be translated as saying you thought wrongly, God took it for good. So that is also, we can say that the brothers held a trial. They held a legitimate kind of trial. All 10 of the brothers, because there were 12 brothers, so 10 of them were judging Joseph. Benjamin was with his father, so the 10 brothers got together and they had a council and they condemned Joseph after weighing all the evidence. And you judged it for meant evil against me, God meant it for good. In other words, God took it for good because they judged him correctly. And you have a parallel to this in Deuteronomy 17, verses 8 onwards. It says, if there's any case too difficult for you to decide, whatever it is and whatever you don't know how the law should be, you have to get up and go to the priest, is a coin, the Levite, and the judge who will be in those days. And you have to ask him, and he will, whatever, and he will decide, they will decide to you what should be done, and you have to do what they tell you. And even if you think that it is mistaken, you still have to do it upon pain of death. Look it up for yourselves. Upon pain of death, you have to do what they tell you. And this is the way a judgment goes, and also a tradition that even may happen, that the religious court makes a wrong judgment, but the outcome will still be positive, because this is what God wanted, this is how God decreed it, and this is the way it is. So too in this case. And the brothers, from their point of view, had actually acted correctly, or they may, if not correctly, it was understandable from a certain point of view what they had done. And there's different commentators, such as the Katav Sofer, who discusses the matter and analyzes the text and shows that this is how we have said it. And he also explains when he says to them, when Joseph said to them, behold, your eyes see, and the eyes of my brother Benjamin see, that is in my mouth, which is speaking to you. Now you must tell me my father wore my splendor in Egypt and all that you have seen, and you must hurry and bring my father down here. What he is telling him, in the same way as Benjamin, my brother, wasn't in the council against me, so therefore I can have no claim against him, because he wasn't even there. He didn't even know what was going on. So I couldn't accuse him of anything or resent anything about him. So you are in the same category. I don't know. You did it, whatever you did it for your own reasons. Mistaken, not mistaken. The result is positive, and I cannot hold it against you. This was an act of God, one could say, through human agency, to save many people alive. May we infer from this that even the future anointed captains of war who will arise from Joseph and the anointed Messiah who will arise from Judah, because the future Messiah, son of Joseph, the captain, the anointed, the Messiah, captain of war, who will arise from Joseph, and the anointed Messiah, son of David, who will arise from Judah. Will they be jealous of each other? Will they be antagonistic to each other, as we see that with some type of fiction, some type of tension between Judah and Joseph? No. And Midrash Sankhya says, no, there was no antagonism between them, as it says in Isaiah 11:13. The enemy also of Ephraim shall depart, and the adversaries of Judah shall be cut off. Ephraim shall not envy Judah, and Judah shall not vex Ephraim. So that is what we have. And the other commentaries along the same line, expanding on this, but what we have is shown is the essence of the way the story goes. So that is what we have for the time being. Now I'll take comments, and if anyone has anything to say, any questions. I can hear you, okay. Yeah.
Thank you for the talk. That was great. Just a few comments. For one, it's interesting how Joseph is able to manipulate his brothers in a way that's consistent with Genesis 49, even though the blessings hadn't happened yet. For example, the easy one is, of course, Reuben has a plan that doesn't succeed, and Judah ends up, his plan is the one that takes precedence. But also, I think it's very canny of Joseph when he holds Simeon a hostage. He separates Simeon from his other brothers, maybe in an act of self-preservation, to keep Simeon and Levi separate. Because after all, in Genesis 49, Simeon and Levi being together is a negative or dangerous or violent situation.
Good point. I'll put that in. Next time I give this talk, or give a the talk, I'll insert it. I'll mention your name. Mark McGee. Okay.
No credit necessary. That's not necessary.
Anyway, it's a good point to do with it. Okay, in other words, anyone who said brothers, sisters, they didn't always get growing up with them, they don't always get along. And we can emphasize, they said empathize with fiction in the family. Sometimes it can reach very serious depths. Then we find ourselves growing up, and we still think back, and we still bear childhood resentments from what happened in their childhood that we never really own up to. So it's very important. And so thanks a lot. We'll see. Wait a minute. See what David, you have something to say?
A lot of bad reception. I couldn't always hear what you were saying.
Okay.
But nevertheless, it's Joseph's tenacity through his trials and his faithfulness was remarkable, are they not? He served Potiphar, and so on. He just didn't become bitter. He kept going. Quite amazing. So obviously he was pretty clever to have got these jobs.
He's pretty clever, and he was all alone. Just think of it, a 17-year-old kid.
Remarkable. Strange
country, all alone, betrayed by his brothers, beaten up, close to nothing, sold to Arabs. And better, they probably weren't too delicate either by the time he finally got sold to his master. Then he had to prove himself, and then he had to take false allegations and made against him, against things that he had just been the opposite. Because he didn't sin, he was punished. And also in the first place, the dreams he had about that Harry would be great and I would bow down to him. And these were prophetical dreams, and he didn't see he was doing any wrong by revealing them. That's why they were given to him. And he would have been under a lot of pressure. He wouldn't and the thing is, he's alone. A alone person goes crazy. He had to keep all this to himself. Just keep on going, doing the best he can with what he had, and seeing how things turned out. It turned out well. It turned out well for him. It turned out well for the Egyptians. It turned out well for all the world, and for all of his family, and for the future generations. So we can learn from this. This is it's a good point. It's worth learning from. Okay, so we've gone on quite a while. I won't continue with any, and we did fairly well as it is. And thank you for being here. It helps me a lot, even though there aren't that many of you. I find it much easier to give a talk and to express what I have to say, and even find things that when I was writing it down, I couldn't really formulate them. But just in the back of my mind, and suddenly they come out. And it helps me a lot to have you as an audience. You're a virtual audience, but you're real people, and you're there, and you're listening to me in real time. And this helps me a lot. So if this is successful, it's also by virtue of you being here and helping me do this. Also, your observations are worthwhile, worth taking into consideration, and even including in future versions of what we write on this subject. So the Lord God of Israel bless you, bless all of our peoples, all of our families, and I hope to see you again. At all events, keep well, and may God be with you.